answers. But I think I want to continue the conversation around Dardes maybe specifically. And if this Oni Warriors team feels like they need to give him the Discordia, give him the Hera, give him the Morrigan, because that's maybe when they've looked their best.
I think that is one way back in. You can build a draft around those picks and facilitate your mid laner. But the Oni Warriors, as Mika said during the interview, I think P's and B's are really where we struggled. That's the reason we lost up against the Solar Scarabs. So we could be looking at a very distinct shift up in how they decide to play this game. Maybe they prioritize picks a little bit differently in the top 3. Maybe we see entirely new drafts from the Oni Warriors. So I think game 1 is going to be our data collection. And that's not just for us on the desk, but it's also going to be data collection for both of these two teams. In a best-of-5 set, that's really where you get to shine your ability to adapt in these longer engagements, in these longer sets here. So game 1 always has a little bit less weight on it, but it's nice to find a little bit of a lead. I know that Agger likes to have the conversation that game 2 is the most important. I still think game 1 pretty important. Just our friend Mo meant him. You can pick it up early on.
That's my joke.
No, I said it.
Did you hear that earlier on the desk?
I said it, though.
Just now. You said my joke, but, still tracks, still counts. You're right. The adaptation, the sort of storylines that build in a 5-game set, something that the Oni Warriors already have experience with. The Oni Warriors going all 5 against the Solar Scarabs in a loss in this group last weekend when we saw these matches played. The Oni Warriors had to show some flexibility. But then I think the concern for the Oni Warriors was that, games 1 and 2, the Scarabs controlled you in the pick ban phase. Games 3 and 4, the Oni Warriors were able to draft better around it. But then in game 5, the Oni Warriors fell back to the same issues that they were facing in game number 1. And so that is a trend I think you need to follow along with here as well. The Tartarus Titans are going to throw Paul something that is all but a facilitator. Facilitator of damage, I suppose, in this Morrigan pick. And on the flip side, Neoma gets something a little bit interesting, and that's the Sylvanas Olaran lane for the Oni Warriors. Is that a good what, or a bad what, or a confused what?
It's confusion. All right, well, I'm going to do a blitz round. We're going to round up what we've seen so far. The Tartarus Titans have banned out Izanami, Serket, Odin. The Oni Warriors take out Hell, Ardio, and Kamazats. That has left available a lot of very high-value picks. And when I'm thinking of Guardians, Sylvanas isn't the initial, right? I'm thinking of the Gebs, and I'm thinking of the Terras.
Yeah, but
that goes by the wayside. I'm thinking of the Cthulhu's as well, and this is the Tartarus Titans win condition, by the way.
Especially with the Morrigan locked in, you have to assume a Cthulhu is in their mind, right? Yeah. So are you surprised that if you're hell-bent on picking this Olaran, are you surprised that the Oni Warriors didn't also get Cthulhu Olaran? Do you think that would have made more sense than leaving Cthulhu and Morrigan open? Because it feels like every team fight now is just a Paul transformation into Cthulhu and 2 Cthulhus running through the sanctified field.
Yeah, I think if I'm in the Oni Warriors position in that second pick spot, I'm not going Sylvanas Olaran. I'm going Terra Sylvanas. If you really want the Sylvanas, I'm going Terra Geb. Maybe something along those lines. Now, you probably want to dedicate one of your bans towards that pick because you have to be concerned about it from the Tartarus Titans, so maybe they are able to absorb a ban there. But this is a very interesting draft. It seems like the answer to the Cthulhu is Achilles. You've got decent shred potential from Olaran. Stop it. The Execute is what I'm talking about, by the way. But this is a curious draft, to say the least. I'm so surprised about the priority order so far. And it's just, I don't know. Now you've banned out Kali, so maybe the answer that the Solar Scarabs have come up with isn't quite there as well. The Oni Warriors, I feel like they said that their issue was the drafting phase, and then they immediately turn around and give the Tartarus Titans every single piece that they want. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, it does seem interesting, doesn't it? Yamoja feels pretty good for the Tartarus Titans here as well. And I like the wherewithal from the Titans. You ban out the Kali here because you think back to the Solar Scarabs and the answers that they had to this Cthulhu last weekend. And it was a triple chin size composition. Kali was at the forefront of that, even though it wouldn't be Scream playing it, it'd be Cubo Fred. That was still an answer to the Cthulhu, especially 2 of them. But Mifflin, now you're starting to see some of what the other answers might be for Cthulhu. You got Achilles, his Execute. You got Nemesis with the ultimate there to shred some of those protections away. So you're at least seeing where the mindset is from the Oni Warriors here. I'm still just nervous about how uncomfortable maybe this Olaran is going to start to be down the stretch. With the round out of the draft, though, the Tartarus Titans complete what looks like to be a scary composition with an Erlang Shen and a Hachiman.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure already for the Tartarus Titans to leverage in the early game. Hachiman incredibly safe, can be left alone on an island in the long lane.
The Warriors draft, when I look at it, you know, I don't think that they won the drafting phase, but I don't think they were unprepared for what the Titans were going to pick. You know, they knew they were going to have to deal with Cthulhu. They knew they were going to have to deal with the Morrigan. They've picked gods like Nemesis and you know, a Hunter and Neith, even though she doesn't normally build chin size. Maybe we see a chins out of Dardes this game. And you've got options to deal with this Cthulhu. You've got an Achilles as well. I think all of those are good. My concern is really, though, about this Yemoja. Because all of these counters look really good. You know, all these options look really good. But who's getting out of Yemoja wall? Literally Dardes. That is it. That's the only way. That's the only player who has a way out of this Yemoja wall if it's placed properly. So you're going to need Phantom, and if you have Phantom, that means you don't have Blink for Nika or for Neil. You know, it just messes with your whole game plan. So I think this Yemoja is what I'm looking at.
Paul taking a good bit of poke here from Dardes, that Spirit Arrow. Connecting and a blink in from Cuvo. Fred, turnaround stun, missed out of Paul. Dashing from Cuvo, gets the Aegis out of Paul. Another basics needed, but he can't find it. Gets under the tower just in time. So Paul does get a squeak by. Layers sat back and watched jungle here. Maybe a little bit more of the interesting part on me here is we do see the Mannequin Scepter still make a return for Layers.
Yeah, Erlong Shen just does so much of his damage with the autos. You just want that kill pressure early that you get. It's a nice ball back.
Aurora got him with the Riptide, but Vote's got an ult of his own to try and save his life. Ult had a Cyclone to immune the slow coming through, but with Neilma on the rotation, Vote will make it out. Quick response. Back to the ult out of Aurora to keep Vote alive.
Yeah, really well played by Vote, knowing he has to go to Neil, but he still loses his ultimate, and Aurora and Cyclone are very happy to trade 2 ultimates for 1. Hachi's still a late game ADC, so he's pretty good there. I'd obviously rather have Cthulhu and the Morrigan over Achilles and the Neith, so.
Vote, no ultimate, a blink in from Layers. The banner drops in, and a World Weaver to try and stop him, but it doesn't stop him fast enough. Vote falls down for first blood, and the Tartarus Titans put themselves on the board here 6 minutes in.
That anti-heal, but you're right in pointing out that neither Paul nor Cyclone apply anti-heal super well. I think you can build Divine on the Morrigan. Flat Pen works really well on her because she's trying to one-tap backline anyways.
Well, Vote again in danger. No beads, but an ultimate. River's Rebuke by Aurora, but it's just Aurora up here, and Vote will hold on to the ult. Does get double stunned out. No beads to his name, and an ultimate out of Cyclone Spin just puts him down. No use of the ultimate from Vote. Means he falls down here. Second blood now to the Tartarus Titans, and maybe a response out of the Warriors on a rotation towards Layers.
Yeah, this is just the Olaron treatment, man. This is what happens. You just get killed by Yemoja.
Tartarus Titans, they start rotating a couple of players over there, Cyclone and Layers, but this time Neil is ready to go just in case. But the Primal Fury already started up by the Titans, already down to half health.
Neil gonna come in, does have Blink available.
Aurora going in, it's a Blink ult from Neil, catches 3, the World Weaver hits Cyclone Spin, but some quick healing out of Aurora keeps him up. A pull in by Neil is good, but now Neil is stuck in the middle of 3. Ultimate out of Cuvo is not enough to save, and even with the Sanctified Fields out, Vote may not be as safe as he once thought, as Paul uses his ultimate to get that Cthulhu transformation and slowly separate this team fight.
But the Warriors did stop the Titans from doing an objective for the very first time this game. It costs them a lot, you know, Neil's life, 4 ultimates in order to do so, but at the end of the day, they stopped him at least once.
Well, they're going to delay it at the very least. Primal Fury again, and the crits are slamming through by Cyclone Spin. Primal Fury down, the Titans do secure it. Thought maybe that Nika got in there with that shield slam, but no, it will be the Tartarus Titans getting another objective.
Warriors,
pushing
that healing will certainly be a problem for Aurora, but also no Phantom up against this ultimate, so I think Aurora is going to be a problem in multiple ways here for the Warriors.
Will be a Thorns by Benji. Aurora does get picked in by the Sylvanas, but all the damage is returned right back at Neil. He loses a good chunk of his health just by the poke that comes out of Cyclone and Layers here. Benji sitting around the jungle, just trying to zone Nika out, and a push up towards this tier 1 tower that could be under fire here very shortly once this minion wave pops in. Aurora's might be willing to tank it up, but Paul is the one who's playing zone duty on this Morrigan, making sure to try to keep Cuvo Fred out.
Love the way that Paul's playing it right now. Playing it like that true assassin, not showing himself on the map.
River's Rebuke from Aurora, but that's just to secure the tier 1 tower for the Tartarus Titans. They'll grab that and add another 500 gold to their pockets, and now they've got their prize. They all go ahead and back away, or maybe at least not Cyclone. He'll sit around in the mist for just a little while, clear out the mid camps. It's a World Weaver on the carry yet again, but he's still got that ultimate to get himself out nice and easy. Now it's just Aurora who might have to worry. He does have a Riptide But it ends up being Nico who takes the Riptide first. A quick pop out. Aurora down to a quarter health. The execute could come through from Nika, but it's got to be body blocked out, and it doesn't. Nika manages to sneak through and picks up the first kill of the fight. Layers and Cyclone down under half the execute out of Nika. Doesn't find anybody this time. It's a transformation out of Benji into that madness to try and zone them away and keep the rest of his team alive with the Sanctified Fields. That's a disengage out of the Warriors.
Benji just shuts the door. It looked like the Warriors were going to be able to keep going for more, but Benji just transforms right in front of his weak back line, and the Warriors know they don't have the muscle power to punch through that ulting Cthulhu. And they were right to back up because Paul was in prime position to come in and play absolute cleanup crew.
Try and go for a pull here, or maybe at least just try and establish some ward control as they do drop the Titans ward that was sitting inside the pit. And they'll all start to posture up around it, all 5 of the Warriors ready to go.
The Warriors have to group at some point, but now Layers has Mannequin's Mace. He's upgraded his starter. You know, look at all the upgraded starters on the side of the Tartarus Titans. The Warriors just don't have that type of firepower quite yet. All 5 members of the Titans have upgraded their starter and are approaching some of their final items. I mean, Paul nearly done with the Magi's, and then his build will be complete. No percent pen for Paul, which is something that, you know, obviously I don't love, but on the Morrigan, it's the most defensible because he doesn't want to be hitting tanks ever. Only backline.
Fire Giant down to half health. The Titans have been starting this one up all by themselves. Benji goes up in the Descent of Madness and a River's Rebuke to lock 3 inside the Sanctified Fields to try and help them out. But Benji is just tearing through the backline. Neil uses his ult, but only finds Layers, and Cuvo is losing the fight up against Paul, who also transforms into a Cthulhu of his own. You had a problem with one, but now the second one has come through and is ripping through the backline. Paul grabs one and will dive under the tier 2 tower to try and take the others, while Layer picks up Dardas, and Neil is doing his best to keep him and Vote alive. Paul doesn't have enough to take them out, but the Tartarus Titans take out 2 of the Warriors and can now go towards this fire.
Man, close but no cigar. Benji able to clean up Nika as well. And these double Cthulhus just doing too much work. No, they didn't even come close to dying. Benji still very healthy. Paul very healthy throughout that entire dive. And the Warriors tried to take the fight to the non-big members of the Titans. You know, they were hitting Aurora and Layers and Cyclone, but the front line just too staunch there from the Tartarus Titans. And a good River's Rebuke from Aurora. Exactly the problem I was worried about. The Warriors just become fish in a barrel, and that Cthulhu just started shooting.
With the Fire Giant down, it's now a push up the right-hand side. Tier 2 tower stands no chance against the Tartarus Titans. They strip away Tier 1.
Because otherwise, I just don't think you can win a 5-on-5.
The fight in the jungle goes south for the Warriors. How will their Phoenix defense come through here? Left side Tier 2 also goes down. 2.5 minutes left on the Fire Giant buff for the Tartarus Titans. They got a couple of minions here, waiting for their opportunity to jump in. Paul sitting way far back for his opportunity to strike. A pull out of Neil just off the mark, but Aurora goes in. River's Rebuke catches 3, and the Riptide holds everybody in place. Neil's the one who takes the brunt of the damage, but everybody on the Warriors are fine for now.
Everyone's fine, and the Phoenix is fine as well. I mean, that was a good River's Rebuke and Riptide combo there from Aurora. And the Titans just never pulled the trigger. I mean, Benji couldn't ever blink in, was constantly put in combat. And because there's no, you know, there's Tier 2 was still up, there was no one pushing mid. I liked that call from the Titans, kind of along the same lines of what I was just talking about. We can't lose 5-on-5s. So why split up? Why 4-1 them when we could just try and 5-on-5? But the whole team wasn't on the same page. Or either Aurora pulled the trigger early, or Layers and Benji didn't get the memo.
Well, Paul was fishing for a red buff, but he comes up empty-handed, as that one's still on cooldown. Meanwhile, the rest of the team will now start grouping up. Forward to the left side and leaving just Layers by himself in the potential 1v1 up against Cubo Fred. Ult still down for Aurora. The Phoenix looked at, but neither team really willing to commit to pull the trigger to go in just yet. Some big crits coming out of Cyclone up against Neil, but that's the call for Benji to go up. Descent into Madness by the Cthulhu, and already just trying to deal with Dardas and Neil Ma. Neil uses his ultimate just to try and zone them away, and this defense is just enough to hold them out. But for how much longer can the Warriors hold on?
Still doing a good job of keeping that Phoenix safe. Mid-Phoenix is gone.
Oh,
Layers
Benji
and Paul got it.
Pulled back in,
Oh,
but
nice.
not quite enough damage. Nico also takes a lot in the Sanctified Field here to force the ultimate out of Cyclone Spin. A blink in by Cubo Fred, committing to the dive up against the Roar. Riptide pushed them away for the time, but now Neil goes in with the blink, and Benji does manage to get a fear. In the back line is Layers against 5. The Mire and the pin do hold off the Warriors, but all that while, Layers
Paul.
got that mid lane Phoenix, and Paul may have a beeline to this enemy team. He'll throw out some big damage and a poly shot at Dardes, but not quite going in just yet. Neil does hit that root to hold him back.
Not quite yet, but this left side Phoenix might be gone now that they've bought some space. This healing from the emoji, but fire nearly gone from the Tartarus Titans.
They were almost dead, but already back up to near full health. Nika at the front line tries to go for the stun. Rivers Rebuke are back up, and there's no escape path for them as the Riptide holds in Nika, and Layers finds Neil. Left side Phoenix goes down. Paul goes in for the dive. The stun hits Vote, and Vote is gone. Dardes left out to dry, and it's Layers who picks him up. Nika and Cubo, the last lines of defense, up against the Tartarus Titans to try and defend their own Titan. But Paul still has an ultimate on this Cthulhu. Will dive in. Cubo stands no chance. A triple kill for Layers, and a Titan going down to give the Tartarus Titans their first win of this best-of-5 set.
Hey man, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If they don't have an answer for Cthulhu plus
His
the more,
ultimate to just work his way throughout an entirety of Sanctified Fields. Paul is essentially just another Cthulhu. Sure, you could say the Morrigan probably doesn't have a great matchup into Oleron himself, but Changeling means that you've got a great matchup if your team has one, and they certainly did. I'm not sure that I'm willing to say that the Oni Warriors draft was bad, because
I
it
don't think
necessarily
it was a bad
was
draft.
not. But I think that if it was the Oni Warriors saying, okay, we know what the Tartarus Titans want to do, and we don't care because we've got our own style to play, and we're going to concern ourselves with that, I think you could put that style to bed.
Right.
It's time to start addressing what the opposition is doing, because the Tartarus Titans composition in the team fight phase, it just felt unstoppable every single time. Benji was an iron wall, felt like he started and ended every engagement on his own whim, and if it wasn't him, it was Paul pretending to be him. The Tartarus Titans, in clean fashion, take game one.
Right, it was the answer of, all right, you have the Achilles and that execute. Maybe there's an answer to the Cthulhu, and if it's not that, we have the Nemesis for that ultimate strip away those protections. That's a potential answer, and we just saw neither of those come to fruition. A single kill in this game for the Oni Warriors. And remember, this is not something the Oni Warriors are immune to. We've seen the Onis drop a game without getting a single kill once or twice already in the group stages. They have been able to bounce back from that on a somewhat consistent basis. Cyclone's been put. Miff, do you feel powerful now? You're controlling our.
That's the first time production let me do it. That's the first time it's ever happened. Oh my god.
If you had said no, I do wonder if we would have hung out there for a little while. or
Almost
not.
certainly not.
I probably would have broken and said, "Okay, anyway, we're going." Sorry, and we would have headed on in. Let's catch back up though with the bands that we already see rolling on in for the Oni Warriors. We're going to take that hell away. That's something that Paul has looked scary on. So why not? We don't want to have to deal with it. I tend to agree with the Oni Warriors in that mindset. Tartarus Titans still in that first pick slot, and that's what's important here. Remember, it was Morrigan and then Sylvanas Oleron for the Oni Warriors were the top three. That was 1, 2, and 3 in game number 1 was draft priority. All three, I'm hesitating, I'm looking, all three still available at the moment. Oni Warriors could change things up here if they want to take away one of those priority picks from the Oni Warriors. You might solve some of your issues if you take away the Cthulhu, the Nike. Morrigan is kind of the linchpin of that style of composition, but then Aphrodite has looked good for Paul. And so Paul definitely draws a lot of attention in picks and bans anyway. But, all right. All right.
Adaptation time. Let's go.
Best of 5. You got to
That's right.
adapt.
Game 2.
Morrigan is the pick. You have to know.
It's like Terra Cthulhu, right? They're just going to take Terra Cthulhu.
You have to know a Cthulhu is getting picked if it doesn't end up getting picked here. Is that a robe he's in?
My man Vote is doing Halloween a little bit late. The Big Lebowski on the screen right now. Big chillin' on the side of the Oni Warriors as they try and decide whether or not they do want to run back the Oleron and Sylvanas.
He was
here.
anything but chilling in game 1. Early on, they just chose Vote to die on the Oleron, and
I don't think they chose.
the only comfort he felt was in real life sitting in his chair in that cozy-looking robe. That's all I know. But I'm not surprised that the Warriors are taking their time thinking about this here. So that's a change. I still think you have to. I mean, and again, this is we're saying yes. Obviously, it's going to be a Cthulhu or a Nike paired with this Morrigan. Clearly, the Oni Warriors are smarter than we are. I'll always speak for myself, smarter than I am. So they know that that's a possibility. They might just have an answer to it. So, could be Cthulhu, could be Nike, could be something else to pair with this Morrigan. But Yamoja and Soul is what we're working with here, so already some changes, some adaptations, Myth, in the draft.
Yeah, good pressure. Yamoja should be able to help out whoever you decide to toss into the long lane, be it Soul or potentially somebody else. Soul has her home in both the mid and the long lane. But we got to talk about what the Tartarus Titans are doing because they have not hit their cards. They don't play it close to their chest. No, I'm gonna. It's Morrigan Cthulhu. Gotta think there's going to be two of them. Gotta think the Oni Warriors want to shut it down early, and this time, the Oni Warriors won't get the Sylvanas for themselves. That goes the way of the Titans. So good AoE healing, decent protections. You've got a good engage thanks to the Wrath of Terra. This is a good draft for the Titans. I wouldn't even call this really an adaptation.
Right.
It's just good.
No, it's like the same mindset as they were looking for, but instead of the Yamoja, you're going to get the Sylvanas. And then same mindset from the Oni Warriors. One of our answers might be the Achilles. Now you have big shred numbers with the Soul. It's something that you had with Olorun, but countered out. The Sanctified Field was by this double Cthulhu composition. So now you're looking at Disapparate as a defensive utility that maybe the Olorun didn't have. Nemesis could be a ban here for the Titans if they're worried about Cubo Fred in that answer. I think there was a Kali ban as well for the Titans last time. And so it depends really what the Titans think that they might end up seeing out of Cubo Fred.
Cubo Fred put up 5,000 damage last game, as did their support, and the healing just from the Titans support was 10,000. He invalidated 2 players on the side of the Oni Warriors, so they could concern themselves with Nemesis, as she does have a decent counter matchup into Cthulhu, just being able to strip that defense. But I think it's not about your matchup into Cthulhu when you play Nemesis into a comp like this, because that was the answer that the Jade Dragons came up with. They brought Nemesis every single time into this Titans draft, and we saw an adaptation from them in that they weren't waiting for a Descent into Madness to strip defense. They had their Nemesis hunting the back line, just trying to put damage into the Morrigan before she was able to transform. So once you do transform, you're very low HP. That could be an answer here. It's Kali and Hun-Bots banned out.
Now, Layers is disintegrating a little bit, but I did see a Pumpkin on his counter, and I have to feel like it's a little late for Pumpkins, right? Pumpkins should be in boxes, in attics, and there should be...
You keep your pumpkins?
No, that one looked like a toy, like a plastic pumpkin or something.
Right.
No, Miff, I don't keep a...
Okay.
I don't keep a live pumpkin.
Look, do whatever you want to do, man.
Actually, here's a fun fact. You're supposed to, what I read, that it's nice to like throw pumpkins out into like the woods and stuff because wildlife can feed on it. It's actually very healthy for like deer and squirrels.
Yeah, it's also
and stuff
like fertilizer for the ground because it rots pretty
fertilizer
quickly.
for the ground. Your place might smell like bad pumpkins, but,
and that smells bad. The whole office was reeking like last week on Sunday.
Right, it wasn't my pumpkin because my pumpkin was good, but all the other ones didn't feel great. All right, let's catch back up with picks and pans here, though, Miff. I don't know how. You start talking about pumpkins, Miff. You're getting me off track. It's unbelievable.
Okay.
Daji and Charybdis will be the final 2 picks here for the Tartarus Titans. And Charybdis, Miff, has been a conversation piece since the start of the group stages. It's been something. See, this one you can keep year-round. This one's going in the attic somewhere,
Dave's
right?
like, you're good at figuring out which ones are good to keep, huh?
It's as hollow as my brain is, Miff. that one can go into the attic. Daji, Charybdis, final 2 for the Titans. Charybdis has seen an increased level of play. Some buffs make that one interesting. And it's less interesting, though, I think, than the AMC that ends up getting locked in here.
Aggro and Billy here in game number 2. And I was thinking maybe this AMC goes to the dual lane, but Ryan, how you kind of feel about AMC going mid in this instance?
I like it, man. I mean, AMC, I think, is kind of poised to potentially do a lot of great things. I think that up against the Morrigan, you can actually bully her out of lane. Not many characters can. You can actually outclear her. Not many characters can. And your fight potential in the mid 3v3 is good. My main concern is with this Daji and how this AMC is going to interact there. But you get a lot of movement speed from Hives. You know, you've got great DPS. I think Dardas has a history on it. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do.
Well, if you were worried about Pao Lao and Daji, well, don't worry. The Oni Warriors have answered to it by picking up a full set of purification beads across the roster. All 5 players have picked up that defensive relic to try and deal with the CC that really everybody on this team offers, not just layers up on this Daji.
And you know what? Oftentimes we're going to be talking about Cthulhu transformation for the Morrigan, but I think in this game there are going to be instances where the Daji transformation is better. This has historically been a very common transform for the Morrigan because it's just easy punishment for a character without any sort of CC immunity left. he can easily solo Dardes if he gets a stun on him. Just stun, Dark Omen, transform, pull with Powwow, see you later. You don't need any help after that. And the same can be said for Fred. He's got to be careful here.
Cuvo, he'll get stunned out by Paul. Dark Omen and transform right into that dodging with no beads left. That's going to be an instant pullback. That's going to be Layers, who strikes First Blood using his Powwow to take that one away, or at least using his damage to close it out. So First Blood, Tartarus Titans on a few minions of experience. As Paul and Aurora rotate over, Aurora, I should say, rotates in towards this mid lane here to kind of give a little bit of help over towards Paul. Get a little bit of experience too. He does have his Gauntlet of Thieves online, can start stacking that up. Same towards Neil Ma, where we have been seeing more often than not Lotus Crown, kind of be that first item in these Sylvanas slots. Layers goes in with the ultimate. Powwow does hit Dardes, but Dardes has the beads to get rid of it. He won't use them this time around. Instead, it's going to be an ult out of Neil Ma to hold them in. The stun is good. Cubo Fred gets some damage and returns it right back against Layers. Now Aurora's one in danger, but a triple Powwow pull and a triple ult out of Aurora makes sure to get the mid laner out, but they do sacrifice Layers.
Yeah, Layers just needed to be a little bit more accurate with those shots because he was going to be in a bad spot as soon as he came down, but Dardes just disrespects him, doesn't use the beads on that pull. Really smart play. And then Neil is right there alongside him in order to make sure that he's got that protection. Knows that he can survive with all the mending waters.
Right back to the tower.
Yeah, and that does not waste any time that time around. The first Whirlpool form, he kind of went in and got a little bit of chip damage off and then backed up and instantly ate a Stellar Burst and has realized that that might not be the best way to take these exchanges. So instead, just use our healing. And he does heal quite a bit, basically back up to full instantly right there, and Aurora can be around to help him out as well.
Oh, Vogue wants this boxing match. Dardes is right behind Aurora. Cuvo Fred gets caught out. It's a Powwow out of Layers. Will pull both of them in and get some damage with 1,000 cuts. The taunt comes back through. Cuvo just needs a little more damage to back, and it's a 1-for-1 trade. The Maw used by Cyclone catches Boat out. Aurora goes for the pull, but it's a quick beads out of Boat. And with Dardes here, or Paul now going in through on the transformation, he'll take out Vote and at least make it a 2-for-2 trade. But Dardes might be in a tricky spot, or same as Neil, but the attention has been divided between these two players. Instead, it's just Paul fighting against Neil.
Neil does have enough for a Riptide. Nice juke on that knockup. As long as he doesn't get hit by that, I think he's out. So, yeah, shouldn't be a problem for him anymore without that knockup landing. Paul does get the cleanup kill there onto Vote, which is big, but good split up there by Dardes and Vote. They don't both run the same way. Paul that time goes Cthulhu, mostly there for the power pen and CDR and the CDR as well. It all feels pretty good.
Now, last game out of the Warriors, the only anti-heal that we did see was the Toxic Blade out of Cuvo. He's picked it up here again. And a Pestilence out of Nika. Do you think maybe now with this AMC, who's honestly, every time you queue up in like Assault or something like that, you get a Brawler's Beat Stick, you throw them B's out. Well, maybe see if he goes there. Nika uses the ultimate to get out. Layers, he's not satisfied with just the ultimate. He wants just a little bit more. So it'll be a Beads out of Nika and an ultimate out of Benji to try and close it out and take down the Soul Laner. But Layers is the one who's tanking up the tower, and he might trade his life away as the Tier 1 tower does take him down. But now it's Cuvo who's going to run it right down against Benji. The knockup holds him off for now. Benji will use the dash, but he gets pinned out, and the Mire and the taunt right after by Cuvo now pulls him back in. And this 1v1 scuffle, Cuvo gets a nice little heal. The minions are holding him off for a little while, but he doesn't have any backup, but neither does Cuvo Fred.
Man, I wonder how, I guess Benji didn't hit Nico with the transform damage, and Layers went in too early. If Benji was tanking tower, I think that goes really easily.
Towards that Cthulhu. Layers sitting around this left side of the jungle, wants to try and maybe make something happen here, but Cuvo and Dardes kind of sitting a little bit further back. They're not going to get anything. Instead, both teams will now meet up by this Gold Fury yet again. Got started up earlier, started burning down, but it was no full commit. A pull in by Aurora and a knock up against Nika, but Nika's doing just fine. He's the only one affected by it. Instead, it's now Neil Ma rotating over, and he still has that River's Rebuke. Could pull that trigger at any moment, but he's going to hold on to the ult for now.
Cyclone's not dealing enough damage. Ooh. Went for the Maw, but just doesn't land it.
Layers goes in with the Trickster Spirit and manages to get Neil Ma to walk away. Meyer drops by Benji, but doesn't catch anybody, just creating some zone for the Gold Fury startup. Half health on the objective, but keeps getting leashed back and forth. The Tartarus Titans do drop it, try and get some vision, but Aurora picks it right back up.
Still no ultimate for Aurora or Cyclone Spin, while the Warriors have all 5. I like them sticking around for this fight.
Benji sticking off to the side here. Nika goes in, and so does Cubo Fred. Taunt hits layers and gets the Pal out, and Aurora is stuck in the middle of the rivers. Pal is only going to pull Neil in, and it's Cubo who grabs Aurora while Benji tries to deal with the other side of it. Paul goes in for the transformation, and it's Layers who picks up Cubo with the bleed. Now Neil the one in danger. A transformation into the madness out of Paul. You had trouble with one Cthulhu, but you almost got one on the tail end of the fight. Benji is down to 10% and now gone. Nika manages to grab him, and Paul gets some big damage and a teleport in by Layers. And manages to get the double kill up on Dardes, but it's a traded out double for double. But here comes Paul, ripping through the backline, gets him under the tier 2.
Got him with the chase, and now it's the Tartarus Titans backline. The only ones left standing. Neil Ma somehow got forgotten about. Paul left Nika or Neil at 1 HP with no Omi and just didn't chase him down. Instead, tried to help the rest of the fight. And Neil surviving might be the difference maker on them being able to do this Gold Fury.
And they're going to pass this Gold Fury back and forth between the carries. Neil is here to try and stop this nonsense, and he'll be able to delay it at the very least. So all this fighting around the Gold Fury just nets a 3-for-3 exchange between these two teams. And the Gold Fury stands yet again. Neil will just make sure to get some vision control back on there, and we've returned to our state of net neutral.
All right, well, they killed a Cthulhu. It took them a while, and it took 3 members to do it, but eventually the Warriors were able to whittle him down and get the kill onto Benji as he was solo diving in the 1v3. But I feel like the Titans, if they would have just used their dual lane ultimates a little bit better in that fight, that would have got a lot better. It's not often that you get to go even in a fight where you just have 2 less ultimates than your opposition, but that's exactly what just happened. The Warriors did a good job of dividing that team fight, but still not enough.
Layers goes in, big burst damage against Cubo's. Gotta pull him back in with that Pal out. No beads and no life for the jungler. Layers gets 1 in the tray. They lose out on the Pyromancer. That did get secured by the Oni Warriors. Tartarus Titans answer back with a swift kill up against Cubo Fred, though maybe not the most valuable, only sitting now 1 and 4 on the slash line. The craziest thing to me here, Aggro, if I'm not mistaken, Benji didn't die at all in game number 1.
Yeah.
This is his, because of that then, this is his 2nd death in 6 games of play. That is wild.
Yeah, that's not enough if you're going to be the Titans, for sure. You got to be able to kill him more than that. Maybe they can make it happen here, though. Benji isn't here for this pull.
Gold Fury down to 10%, but leashed yet again. Neil Ma, enough of a threat on this Umoja to force them to leash the Gold Fury, but not entirely. Got back up to half health, but once again, leashed by Aurora. Back and forth, pull against Nika, and some damage out of Cyclone Spin. He goes up for the maul, pulls the trigger, but who is he going to slam with it? Supernova expended out of vote to zone them away, and Cyclone will instead cancel out that ultimate and go right back to the Gold Fury. The Tartarus Titans are not giving up on trying to grab this gold.
Benji in the back line again, going to descend into madness, forcing back Dardes and Vote, and everyone collapsed.
Dardes and Vote both hit by that knockup, and it's Benji who seals the deal with the AoE, but Benji goes down to the execute out of Nika, and it's Layers in the back line on the Pal out. Doesn't grab anybody. Aurora waiting back to help him out, and Paul goes in for the transformation for a 2nd Cthulhu. They killed 1. Can they kill the 2nd one? A top by Cubo Fred is good, but he's separated himself from the team, and Cyclone Spin picks him up while Paul hits 3 with the knockup of his own and sends them all back towards the tier 2 tower yet again.
Again, the Warriors can take down Benji, but not the 2nd Cthulhu, and the Warriors that time just got 2 grouped up. The Titans can really punish you whenever that happens. Their AoE is fantastic, and the Gold Fury will eventually go down in their favor. Big difference there for me is the better ultimate from Cyclone Spin. Not that it hits anyone that time, but that it forced out Supernova. And that is a trade that I will take 7 days a week.
On this AMC, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but you know, Brawler's Beatstick feels like it's an easy application with a god like AMC. I mean, every time you run like, you know, an assault game, it just feels like you're always constantly under threat of bees.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get good anti-heal if you go for it, but at this point he needs Chins, and he probably needs Exi as well. I don't think he's going to be able to fit it.
Fire Giant started by the Tartarus Titans, and Cyclone and Aurora here to deal the damage, and Layers teleports in. And this Fire Giant is going down quick to the Titans. Benji dashes in to try and zone them away and goes up into the transformation to hold just Cubo Fred up. The Fire Giant does get leashed by the Titans. They'll hold off. And the 2nd transformation is Neil Maul just gets caught out in the middle of all of it. The 2 Cthulhus ripping through the back line. Vote's got nowhere to go. Dardes and Nika both get knocked up, and Paul still has a couple seconds left on this transformation before he goes back down. But they've already picked up 2 in the midst of the fight, and it's only Cubo who's still sticking around, him and Nika. to try and hold away this fire.
Neil just didn't have beads. Layer still had ultimate. Thank you very much. This dodge pick continues to do work right now for the Titans, second on the player damage charts.
Nika tries to go in. He gets pulled back in by Aurora, some beads to hold him out, but he gets knocked through the ring of fire. The Fire Giant is getting low. Nobody has leached it away just yet. Cyclone's still holding on, and the rest of the Warriors zoned away. Tartarus Titans, after finally killing 2 and taking the Fire Giant, they net the objective. They net a 3rd kill as Dardes gets caught out, and maybe even a 4th. Cubo Frank gets caught lazy backing, and the Dark Omen Polynomicon across the wall picks up a kill for Paul.
See, Paul, the way he's gamer leaning, he could actually see around the corner. That's how he's able to make that work.
Is that how that works? Kind
Yeah,
of like you playing a shooter and you have the 2 buttons to kind of peek corner?
Right, yeah, he just leans IRL in order to make sure he could see Fred right there. And that death from Fred is actually critical because that makes this siege from the Titans a lot easier.
It's 5 versus 3. Nika and Neil here. Both of them do have their ultimate. Cyclone falls low and he'll have to use the Whirlpool to get out, but so does Vote. Aegis and Disapparate, and a quick ultimate by Layers is not quick enough to take him out. Vote gets out because of Disapparate. Neilmaw down to a quarter health. The Phoenix looking worse for wear here for the Oni Warriors. That one gets shredded away, and Nika has to sit back and watch as the bird goes down. Titans, they don't get a kill in this fight, but they do get one of the better objectives to grab away here in this right side Phoenix. Paul acting as the pseudo-assassin on the Morgan, just stepping around the jungle anywhere that he so pleases. He's got Benji as backup, and the Titans will strip away one more tower. Only the tier 2 in mid lane still stands while fire minions start pouring up the right side of the map. You can see one standing up where that tower once stood. Meyer comes out from Benji to try and zone Nika. Won't find anybody on the root damage, just the slow. Everybody on the Tartarus Titans are waiting patiently for their moment to strike. Last time, it was Benji who pulled the trigger first. Will it be him this time around?
I mean, Layers has ult, Neil has no beads. That's what I'd be looking to do if I were the Tartarus Titans. Just let Layers go in, blink in, use that ultimate, and make sure that you were not full committing on it because Neil is going to River's Rebuke as it happens. So you gotta expect what his response is gonna be, but that's gonna be his only option.
Nika goes in for some poke, and Benji tries to return some poke of his own, but Meyer's not going to grab anybody. Instead, it's just some pin. And all this while, by baiting him out here on the left-hand side, they're letting these fire minions come up into the right Phoenix, and they're going to have to send at least one person back. Kubo does walk away, and the Phoenix starts to be under siege here. Aurora and Cyclone walking up. But the Bees' damage coming out of this mid-lane AMC is starting to come through, and Cyclone and Aurora are both forced to walk away. He's got 6th item, and Neil hasn't even finished up his 5th yet.
Yeah, pretty far behind here for the Warriors now, 12,000 gold. But, you know, 12,000 gold at 29 minutes is not the end of the world. You can kind of play into this if you're the Warriors. It's not easy. You know, killing a level 20 Sylvanas is pretty much impossible with his passive, but at least you'll be able to get something going here with some of your late game itemization. Dardes has finished his chin size. Obsidian Shard done for Vote.
Fire Giant started up and being shredded like paper. Cyclone Spin and Layers have demolished this fire before the Warriors even have a chance to respond. Nika gets a stun on one, but he gets return fire with a stun of his own. Beads will help him out, but the Riptide throws him against the wall and sets up for Benji to go into the madness. River's Rebuke will hold out one Cthulhu, but it will not hold out Layers. He goes up into Pow Lao, but doesn't pull anybody back just yet. Now with the River's gone, Benji storms up the right side.
Nika knocked up, and that might be enough to have the rest of them catch, but not quite. But look at the beads. No beads for Nika or for Dardes.
Cyclone Spin starts pelting away at the Phoenix and even pelting away at Nika. He gets knocked up by the ultimate out of Aurora, but it's not quite enough to take his life or take that Phoenix's just yet. Pin only hits Benji, and the Warriors are not willing to defend against this weakened Phoenix. That one goes down once again, and the Titans make their move towards mid.
Yeah, I think it's just clean Phoenix's time, but there's still 5 members here from the Warriors with some key ultimates. Watch for Nika's execute. He's got to try and make a play.
Aurora does get stunned down. Nika finds that, and Aurora hit down to half. The Bulwark pops in,
Nice.
A triple Riptide, throws him back in the Phoenix, and the Titans got to start being a little bit more careful where they walk. These Riptides can put them out of position, but Benji blinks into the backline once again, but no ult is available to him. Neilmaw down to half of the Phoenix under siege, but Layers just slams into the backline and executes Vote all on his own. Neil with nowhere to go as Paul finishes the job with him and his own ultimate. It's a double kill now for Layers, and Paul swinging away on this Cthulhu. There's no answer back. It's another triple kill for Layers at the end of the day, and another Titan going down to the Tartarus Titans to make this a 2-0 start in this best-of-5 set.
Look, after they got Fire Giant, we were riding along with Benji, and we watched.
This one is just much higher paced. There again was some fighting right around this point, right? It's kind of even back and forth kill-wise. Then we start to get to team fight, group up, run it down phase, and that's where the Tartarus Titans really started to separate themselves.
There was significantly more fight back from the Oni Warriors this time around. I thought that Cubo, Fred, and Dardes performed a lot better than I were expecting them to perform into this composition for the Tartarus Titans. But that said, the Oni Warriors draft was good. We knew that from the offset. We knew coming in that this is a draft that can work. It's just whether or not it was able to line up in the late game team fight up against what the Tartarus Titans were bringing. And I think the clips, the kill feed, the everything on the screen right now can kind of put it on full display that it couldn't. Double Cthulhu is a force to be reckoned with, especially when you've got immobile gods like AMC, especially when you've got gods that are so easy to shut down their mobility, like Cuvo Freds. Sure, you could turn into a turtle or a ferret, but you're going to get stopped by one of the many knockups coming your way, and that's exactly how it went down more often than not. I can only describe allowing the Tartarus Titans, allowing Paul and Benji to take Morrigan and Cthulhu 2 games in a row
Again,
as criminal. It's criminal.
especially when they're separated from one another. It's been a Morrigan first pick, and then 2 picks to the Oni Warriors, and then a Cthulhu second pick. So there's been every opportunity for the Oni Warriors to pick or ban it away. They have chosen to try their own hand at finding answers to this. Decent damage numbers out of Dardes and Vote here in this game. Both layers make your head now, and it's going to be important with the Oni Warriors in the first pick slot here for this game. For now, the priority to change. That said, if both Morrigan and Cthulhu are left open to the first picks there for the Tartarus Titans, I imagine they just pick them back to back. But when you've got this priority that the Oni Warriors have, you should make a difference. You should change some stuff up. One thing that's not going to change is Paul playing Hell. And that's just a very dynamic combo. And I'm not sure, and I think I agree with the Oni Warriors on this one. I'm ready to see Paul on that pick.
I gotta think he's been tearing up scrims. I mean, I know he's got a history with this god, but the amount of focus and emphasis the Oni Warriors have put on the Hell, particularly in this set, has been ludicrous. All 3 games so far,
First ban,
Hell has been banned out first overall by the Oni Warriors, regardless of position
Now
in the draft,
Aphrodite.
first or second pick.
So with Aphrodite being banned out, maybe that land.
There it
Cthulhu.
is.
There we go. So there's the change from the Oni Warriors. You wonder if then that. Oh, and then it's a Morgan. That's what I was going to ask. I was wondering if maybe then Dardes, now in your first pick, you're going to ban away the Aphrodite. That's your way of saying we're going to find some way to take this Morgan away, which would have been a pick for the Oni Warriors. But the Titans are not going to give them that opportunity. So a different look at a composition this time for the Tartarus Titans. And the way that the pick bans broke down here, Miff, a couple priority frontliners made their way through. Odin first and foremost. Geb comes to mind there as well. Nike is still around. That's a pick that the Tartarus Titans have liked in the past as well. And at least through 1 pick and 6 bans, we can say that the Oni Warriors have made the Titans change up their draft.
Yeah, I like going towards Odin in the first slot. You've got decent flex potential. Could go jungle, could go solo, could even head over into the support role. I was expecting the Titans to prioritize Sylvanas here, but instead it's Yamoja Kamazot's locked in, and it's a different look from the Tartarus Titans finally. In Game 3, the Oni Warriors forced them to do something different here. It's pressure out of the long lane thanks to Yamoja's support. Kamazot has great scaling. If the Oni Warriors want to, they can go back towards that Olaron, but maybe this Kamazot kind of acts as a deterrent, saying, sure, you could lock in Olaron, but it probably won't do so well because Bat Out of Hell just beats Sanctified Field. All you have to do is blink in, land Vampiric Bats before the Olaron's able to react, and then immediately channel Bat Out of Hell, and you likely will find the kill off of just that damage alone. So we'll see if the Oni Warriors decide to do exactly that. I think that with Odin, though, maybe that's enough to limit Kamazot's, that you could feel comfortable going for something immobile like Olaron or even the AMC again.
And remember, because this is always when the Oni Warriors, now I say always, this is the second best of 5 set that we've seen this team in. In the existing best of 5, this is when the Oni Warriors turned things around. They went down 0-2, they won 2 straight, lost in Game 5 to the Scarabs. They're down 0-2. And they bring out Discordia for Dardes, and this is where the tides changed in the Oni Warriors' first set up against the Scarabs. When you gave Dardes this Discordia, you're giving something to Kivo Fred that he provides some setup with in the Hun Bats. And so again, I think the Oni Warriors continue to sow this intrigue, and the Discordia for Dardes is maybe at the forefront of that for me. I mentioned Nike still being available. That's what's going to be locked in here for the Tartarus Titans. Titans still needing both of their carries, Mid and Hunter. But you've already got a great front line locked in here, Miff, between Yamoja and Nike. and then some good chase down potential with the Camazotz.
The Titans have shown no weaknesses with their draft so far. They haven't necessarily drafted the faces of this composition just yet. This isn't a Camazotz composition. That's not how you draft around that pick. He kind of acts as a solo agent, as does Nike. Yamoja as well kind of operates on her own. So the Oni Warriors going to have to try and figure out exactly what this draft of Titan Warriors are trying to build is if they want to address it in the ban phase here. Whereas I'd say the Oni Warriors have kind of showed their hand. You've got Discordia in mid, you've got your Hun bots in the jungle. Both of those picks are semi-deal-withable. That's not a real word, but like you could go for some counter picks. For example, Terra has a great matchup in a Hun bot as well as Discordia because you can lock down the entirety of her leap. Odin, I think, is going to do the most here to influence what the Titans are looking for elsewhere in their draft. That said, these bans for the Tartarus Titans, I think, doing a great job of limiting what the Oni Warriors are going for, whereas the Warriors, the bans they toss out kind of feel like, to me, we just don't want to play against these picks.
Yeah, don't want to play against those two. Surprising, admittedly, that Sylvanas and Geb fall down to the final bans here for the Tartarus Titans. Those are two picks that we've often seen up towards the forefront of the conversation, not only in the support role, but just in the game in general. It's a Hades hover, and not a Hades lock-in. It'll be Chang'e for who we are assuming will be Paul. I would hope so. Out of the mid lane. This has been a pick reserved for zeros. Reserved no longer. Paul is going to get a look at the Chang'e here for the rest of his team, and we'll wait on the Hunter pick for the Tartarus Titans down the stretch. Are you excited, though, for the Titans and the mid laner that they've chosen to draft here in Game 3?
It synergizes well with Camazotz in that it is a lot of fight potential. Discordia doesn't have the best escape on the planet, so the ultimate from Chang'e covers the entirety of the stealth field. It's the length of the dash as well, so Chang'e, who is already likely playing in melee range, should be able to have decent follow-up. Camazotz chase down potential incredibly high as well. But my pick for the best god in the game right now has been Terra. I've made no qualms sharing that with everybody. And finally, for the first time today, she's being looked at by the Oni Warriors. Potential to lock in here. And I said earlier that Terra has a great counter matchup in a Hun bots, but the same is true of the inverse. Her synergy with Hun bots is incredibly high as well, because Fear No Evil procs Earthen Fury either against you or with you. So now, Hun bots ultimate is essentially a burst damage ultimate as well as a great form of AoE CC.
Needforseat.com, by the way, is where you want to head for one of these beauties. Look at all of its majesty there, Mifflin. It actually shows so well on camera as well.
Good lord.
I mean, you could just stream from some other room entirely and just have that.
It's a conversation piece.
It really is. You know, you walk into a room that really stands out, gets the ball rolling, you're nervous about having guests over. Just have a Smite Maxonomic chair sitting in the middle of your room, and you're bound to have something to talk about for the rest of the night. Maybe Neilma's room, I'm not sure. We'll find out at some point here. At any rate, Neilma's pick has been locked in, and that's the Terra Heimdall to round out the draft for the Oni Warriors. And it just feels like a nice, well-rounded composition for the Oni Warriors, doesn't it? You give Nika something good on the Odin, setup, lockdown, good damage throughout the rest of those picks. And for the first time this set, it does not feel entirely like you're fighting an uphill battle if you're the Oni Warriors. You're not going up against the Cthulhu, the Morrigan. You've got a good draft coming out of the pick and ban phase and a good chance to get a win here in this set.
So if this is what the Tartarus Titans bring out when you've tested them and banned out some of their favorite picks like the Cthulhu and the Morrigan, I think you should be doing that a little bit more often. Maybe don't wait until a game 3 situation.
Watch this somehow be scarier, though?
Yeah, if they just dominate, that's on me. And this draft does have the potential to do so. It's a spearhead composition if set does get locked in. It's aggression across the board. Even inside of the solo lane, jungle rotates out, Chang'e's W King, set in the long lane's W King, Camazotz maybe the most W key jungler besides Erlang Shen. So the Titans have the potential to run away with the early, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion, whereas a late game composition comprised of Cthulhu and Morrigan is probably going to dominate the late game as a foregone conclusion. The Oni Warriors have done a very good job in Game 3 of addressing some of the issues here. Well, that changes things. The W key composition is no longer exactly just that. Now it's a Oleron composition. That is how much Oleron changes the face of your draft.
J-Mac, you've got some obsession with the fifth person getting hit
No,
by...
I said
what
second or
games
third.
are you...
I
okay,
said second
sure.
or third.
How many three-man waxing moons have we seen? Look, you're right.
We've seen a few 2 or 3-man ones. But
You're
we haven't seen a 5 yet. Thankfully, we haven't seen a 5.
It just doesn't happen. It just can't. Because
It's
you're
just a crazy god, man.
You're not wrong. Waxing moon slams the people behind the first 2 targets, but
Yeah, look, if you're caught in Sanctified Field, you get stunned for 1 second, you're dead the vast majority of the time. I do think that the Olorun Chang'e combo can be pretty potent in that way. I think that they can work pretty well together, but I liked Mifflin's point of, is Chang'e the type of god you want to create space for? I'm not convinced.
Maybe Chang'e can create some space for herself here. Dardes just narrowly avoids the Vampire Bats out of layers and gets back to safety under the Tier 1 tower, but Paul's already looking to scrap early, and so is Aurora and Cyclone. Vote down to 25% health, but Neil going to help him and get some clear fight right back at them. The Titans, they're already looking to do some boxing early on.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, look, the Titans, they can smell blood in the water. They know they just have to win one more, that the Warriors are in a reverse sweep situation, but it's Neil and Fred. They did it a lot last year, so we know they have the capability of doing so. But I really like the Titans draft overall. I mean, the Chang'e pick I've always been pretty lukewarm on, but I think it can really fit Paul's playstyle well. It kind of plays in the late game, especially if he goes Blink at level 12. It can kind of play almost like a Hebo with the way that you want to initiate fights, and I think it can work.
Benji under fire on the right side of the map. Nika and Cubo can just walk right into the tower and pick up a nice easy kill for the Warriors, and finally get a little bit of momentum towards their side of the map, towards their team here. First blood goes to Oni Warriors here just shy of 2 minutes.
And don't forget the performance that Nika had earlier this year on this Odin, where I've never seen a player 1v9 a game like that in the SPL. Like, top 5 individual SPL performances I've ever seen.
Maybe Beg's question here is, how much more critical is this anti-heal now that you have a battle mage putting out some of that healing compared to something like a Sylvanas, which is not going to build a lot of power, but will have some decent sustain in the kit.
Well, the Warriors need a ton of anti-heal in this game, because Camazotz, you need to anti-heal. Chang'e, you really need to anti-heal. Umoja, you really need to anti-heal. And you could stand to anti-heal the Olorun. So all those things, the Warriors should be having a ton of it, but it's also very easy for them to build with this comp. They've got a much easier way to build it than in the past.
Well, to fight, it's a 2v2. It's a Fear No Evil drop by Cubo Fred, and a cage out of Nika. Bat out of hell from Layers to close the gap. Nika has to use the shield, but he doesn't have much shield left. And the basic out of Layers will make sure to clean up the job and make it a one-game kill here now for the Tartarus Titans. Another purple invade on the left side. Comes up empty-handed, and Cubo still sticking around on the right. Does manage to make it out.
Yeah, and secured the blue, took it away from Benji, so he won't have a blue.
Grab just about anything there with that Chang'e by sending and utilizing that passive.
Yeah, it's really nice to have whenever you're in the mid lane. Can stay out a lot longer, make sure you're getting to your farm, but you need a hefty amount of MP5 in order to really do that realistically. And Chronos Pendant is a good start, but would expect that to be a Lotus Crown next that will help in that department. After you get those 2 items, you can afford to stay out pretty far.
Cyclone, half health just from boxing out against Vote. And Olorun does not win the early boxing matches. Vote will get stunned out by Aurora. Aurora caught inside the walls and stunned out by Neil this time around. And Cyclone does want to try and turn some of the fight right back. Sanctified Field drop. Neil and Vote caught inside. But Neil is able to walk out
Rivers
by his own. Here's the Rivers Rebuke right out.
Oh, nice.
But no damage dealt to him, so he's able to blink right on and maybe be able to turn the fire right back at Aurora as the Earth and Fury comes out and a bling in from Layers to at least make it a 1-for-1.
Yeah, but Vote's going to be able to survive, so that's a good play there from the Warriors. I think they demolished in that 2v2, and it's really just because Neil was able to blink out of that Rivers Rebuke. Cyclone couldn't get an auto on him or a little 2 meteor in order to make sure that he was in combat still.
Layers jumps over. Thought maybe Vote would try and go for the fight right back, but no ultimate to his name, so he will have to sit back as his purple buff does get stolen away by Layers, and the Tartarus Titans with another kill up here and another 1-for-1 trade. Keeps that gold lead relatively even compared to what it was prior. Still about 700 up. Paul in the mid lane with no beads to his name. Used the Aegis to get out of the apple and will be able to live with quite a bit of extra health. Turns fight back around. A Waxing Moon onto Dardes, and then the healing damage right after. Fires it back, but now Paul's the one in danger except for some healing out of Aurora to keep him through. Neil wants to close out this kill, and Paul is playing with fire in this mid lane going back in.
But this is exactly the type of tightrope that Paul loves to trapeze across. I know that's what trapezing is, but I'm using it anyways. You can hold that. Paul with the 2v1 victory. No beads for him on the Chang'e, but actually really liked the way he sequenced his Aegis. Doesn't use the Aegis to immune the big part of the Discordia ult damage. Instead, spams Aegis out of the Fear No Evil and knows that he can always react to that Discordia apple.
For as long as he wants. Even Aurora still working towards what I imagine will be a Lotus Crown of his own, so having 2 of those to kind of bounce back and forth between each other We'll see if Aurora does elect to finish that item up, or maybe go for one of these other helmets. But Dardes has to sit under this tier 1 tower because there are 3 players from the Tartarus Titans here just staring him down in mid.
Cyclone going to play aggressive as well, but Vote going to drop the ult first.
Gonna be a quick beads, and a beads out of Vote to try and get him away, but so long to get out of that Bifrost. The 1 versus 1 trades both ults and both relics out of the Hunters, and maybe sets up now for a Scorpion to be stolen by the Titans.
And they will secure it. I think that that trade on the left favors Vote, even though he lost the trade for sure and lost the purple. Getting Olaron beads ult is just more valuable, and Fred should do exactly this. Just skulk along this left-hand side, try and find a blink ult. Now, it is warded by the Titans, and they know he's here.
It's going to be a blink in from Neil. The root is good against Cyclone. The wall just off the mark, but Cubo with the Fear No Evil slams him against the wall and pummels him to death. It's a big turnaround kill for the Oni Warriors to pick off the Hunter of the Titans, and maybe they can get some more here. Aurora does get a stun, and that will dissuade the Warriors from going for another kill. But maybe with Layers here, that could start up another potential fight as Layers goes in deep. Bat out of hell even used to try and chase down Cubo Fred, but with that Monolith, is just enough to hold him away.
And that Lotus Crown proc as well end up helping out as Vote get a TP in right in front of Layers and Aurora. Aurora should have the Omi for a Riptide now, but Layers has already given up the chase, so ends up being a 1-for-1 overall, or excuse me, a 1-for-0 and try and get some positional advantage, but don't think it's going to amount to a whole lot without people coming to help. Will be a split on those oracles, but Layers on the way and has blink.
Stun does hit Neil. River's Rebuke comes out to try and hold them in place, or at least lock down where they can run. A Fear No Evil dropped in the middle of that, but Neil is able to walk out just for now. Still needs a little bit of time and a little bit of distance to go, but he does get through. Cyclone eats the sword out of Vote, and that'll be some good return damage back to the Hunter. Neil makes it out, but now the Fury can be started up by the Titans.
And there's no Fear No Evil and no Earth and Fury. Those are big ultimates to not have. Fred is now nowhere near as scary on this Hun Bats, but because Nika makes a good early rotation and Benji calls it, Benji not on the way, that means the Titans might not be as keen right away.
Gold Fury does get pulled. It's going to be a little bit of time before the Warriors are able to respond back to it. It's already down to a quarter health, and with the Sanctified Field dropping in, the Titans can grab the Gold Fury. Neil dashes in, but to no avail. The first objective of the game goes to the Titans. Love this left lane to try and put some pressure on the tier 1 while Paul makes sure to zone Neil Ma and continue getting some of that mid lane farm. It is a tier 1 spellbook picked up by Paul for a 4th item, and maybe a little bit more here now on the left side. Vote gets caught out, but he avoids the stun out of Aurora, but right behind them is Neil to try and bail him out. Ultimate expended by the Hunter, and Neil diving in has already lost half of his health, trying to save his Hunter's life and buy him a little bit of a way out. Oni Warriors do make it through, but Cyclone Spin and Aurora still stick around, even with Dardes here.
And look at this, Benji chasing Fred all the way under his Phoenix. Will lose the beads,
but Neil steps up too far, and Cyclone Spin punishes him for it, and now Vote has to go back while Dardes sits by and watches.
Yeah, brutal sequence there for the Warriors. I don't know how Benji was able to chase down Fred that far, so he's actually a little bit higher on attack speed than some Hunters would be in this exact position, but having that purple buff up your attack speed for something like an Oni Fury fight would have felt really nice. It's actually a nice play by Cyclone to deny it.
It's going to be a quick pull of the Oni Fury by the Warriors. Dardes and Vote are here. Cubo Fred in the back line does still have Fear No Evil, but Benji is going to try and zone everyone else away. Cubo goes in to steal it away. The Oni Warriors do manage to grab it, but how many of them can make it out? It's an ult by Benji to try and catch out Cubo Fred. The stun from Aurora only manages to hit Neil, but Benji is just not giving up.
Again, but that has the Earth and Fury ready to go. Apple lands onto Cyclone Spin, and the Warriors have retreated to their tier 2 tower. Really good play there from Fred. Love his decision to just blink in distance. So it's going to be hard to just siege into this Warriors team. Plus, you've got Heimdall with that giant AoE slow that you have to walk through. So I like the Warriors' decision, even without Fear No Evil, to try and be here to defend.
Well, the question earlier in the game was going to be how much anti-heal do the Warriors pick up? The answer is a lot of it to deal with the sustain out of the Titans. The first one going to be used is that cage out of Nika to hold Paul in place, but Paul doesn't seem too worried about this. He'll take the apple and immune pretty much all the damage, but Cyclone is the one getting poked out by that strike from the Discordia. Dardes finally getting some big damage numbers up in these fights and poking out some of these carries.
The poke's not going to be good enough against this comp. You've got Yamoja and Chang'e that is too much healing. Plus, Olaron has the 3 built in as well, so that's not going to be enough.
Back to the tier 1 tower, and it's Benji in the back line with an ultimate. Catches 3, leaps in the middle of 3, and a River's Rebuke out of Aurora to hold a couple of members in place. Neil has nowhere left to run, and caught inside the Sanctified Fields. He goes down. Damage against Nika is good, and Vote has to use the Aegis as Benji continues to run through the back line, but it's Cubo Fred with a Fear No Evil to separate 4 of them.
Lair still in the front line. No ultimate for him. No ults ready for the Tartarus Titans, but they have brute forced their way down the mid lane. They get the tier 1 tower, they'll get the tier 2 as well, and just using that sustain. And you're right that the Warriors have a lot of anti-heal. Cursed on, Brawlers, Pestilence, Divine, they've got it all. But it just isn't enough because the Titans can reset the fight, back it up, go again, back it up, go again, back it up, go again, and eventually they're able to make it work on that siege. Beautifully done, using that sustain to its fullest.
With everybody backing on the Tartarus Titans, the Oni Warriors going for a bit of a Hail Mary here to try and take away this Fire Giant. A quick call by the Warriors may finally net them a big objective to steal this one away from the Tartarus Titans. Even after losing the fight in mid, you lost both your towers, you lost a couple of players, but you get the big objective on the map, Fire Giant to the Oni Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching the Titans, takes them a long time to get that tier 2, then they walk all the way back to the Scorpion in order to back. And I was thinking, can't the Warriors just go to fire right now?
Paul finished up, Gemma Focus finished up, and it is going to be the Sundering Axe out of Benji as he is 5 slotted like a majority of his team here. Gold Fury was looked at between these two teams, but now they're going to back away from it, at least for now. Instead, it'll be the Oni Warriors pushing up the left side of the map. They'll take the tier 1 tower. They could easily try and take that tier 2, but with a couple members of the Titans standing by, not willing to make that risky play yet.
And Layers, once he'll get his speed, you can see him hanging around, but he is going to get called back to try and defend this Gold Fury. Vote didn't have his relics. I think that's why the Warriors didn't want to start the objective. Now he does.
Gonna be Gold Fury down to a quarter health. The Warriors have full control over it, but the Warriors do manage to secure it out. Neil takes a little bit of damage. A Riptide out of Aurora holds him in place, and a River's Rebuke locks them out, but Neil does have a path out if he needs to, and he will squeak on by. The Tartarus Titans, they come up empty-handed in their defense against the Fury.
Yeah, it seems like all the Titans aren't really on the page of we should be fighting here. Just back it up. It was a 1,000 gold lead. Now it's even a 600 gold lead or so for the Warriors, which is not anything to be worried about. You can lose this tier 1 as well. It's not the end of the world. I think tier 2s are what you really have to worry about defending and being strong for those. So we'll see what the Titans decide to do now.
It's a full 5 strong on the Warriors, and all ultimates up. Aurora doesn't have his, and all relics are up for the teams. Paul gets hit by some damage. Layers has to leap away. The tier 2 is slowly starting to whittle away here for the Tartarus Titans, but only down to half health. Does it drop? Both resustaining up back with his team and on the minions. And this fight for the tier 2 is not over yet by the Warriors.
No, they still have all that healing on the side of the Titans, so they can stay here all day. How long do the Warriors want to stay here is the question. 40 seconds on this Fire Giant. They're not making a whole lot of headway.
Benji leaps in. In the back line, it's Nika who dropped down the cage. A stun does hit Vote, but they're not too concerned. Instead, it's a Fear No Evil out of Cubo that slams against Aurora and Benji and forces the backliners to walk just a little bit further back. But even with the tower going down, they're not satisfied with it yet. It's going to be the Titans instead diving in. Sanctified Fields holds Neil in place for what feels like eternity, and they finally come up with something in their favor here. The Tartarus Titans get 1.
Only got 1, though. That's not really that much. To sacrifice Neil in the face of 4 ults and a tier 2 tower, I think the Warriors probably feeling pretty good about how that siege went. The Titans just don't have easy initiation. Full build now, and both the Warriors backliners have just finished off some key items, namely the starter upgrade and the chin size now for Vote. And Dardes is still missing a full item right now, so he's going to be able, assuming that's a 20% pen item, he's going to be able to do a lot more damage to Benji in the future.
Cyclone did get to go back and pick up his Diamond Arrow, while Aurora is being controlled in the back by Nika and Neil. Some CC to hold him down, but Layers in the back, jumps in, gets a big damage up against Vote. The Bat out of Hell, not quite enough damage to finish the job. The Bifrost gets him out, and a cage out of Nika at least zones the rest of the Titans away, but Benji is not done yet. He'll jump into the back line of the Warriors, and a River's Rebuke out of Aurora will zone away the fight.
But Fred still has that Blink ultimate. Look at him lurking on this left-hand side. The Titans are going to group to heal. Can Fred punish them whenever they do?
That's a big question here, but Paul still holding on to his ult. Even Cyclone holds on to the Sanctified Field, and that all that health that was whittled away has now been brought back up by the Titans. That sustain out of this Umoja, out of this Chang'e, is keeping them up, and has returned us to a state of even here between these two teams. A continuous battle around this Fire Giant.
And Vote was the target there from Layers, but Layers just not quite ready to do the one shot. Needs a Heartseeker, I think, if he's going to be able to really, truly try and just one-tap someone off the old Blink 2-1, couple swoops from the ultimate, and Vote was able to hold on to both his relics, but did force the ult from Neil, which is obviously huge. That Earth and Fury, big deal.
So Warriors again starting up the enhanced Fire Giant
Look at the
now,
left.
31 minutes in. Cyclone is nowhere near the fight, and there's 4 Warriors lurking around, but Layers, Benji, and Aurora are here for the Titans to at least hold it out. Cage comes out from Nika, some damage out of the mid laner is going to get a leap away by Layers. Paul has rejoined the fight, and one gets sent through the realms by Vote. Up in the bat of hell out of Layers to get some damage, but Benji, as soon as he crashes back in, used that ultimate for extra health.
And he used it all right. He instantly went from looking like he's dead to putting a lot of damage on the back line of the Warriors and forcing them back. In time, that this front line from the Titans, pretty staunch, pretty difficult to punch through them.
Paul will sit inside the mist, not to really gain much here other than just looking cool, standing by. 32 minutes in, the enhanced Fire Giant on the map. The Oni Warriors did start it up, but now the Titans are aware that they're willing to pull this objective. They've got all 5 of their teammates here around the Fire Giant just to make sure that it doesn't go south. Neil starts it up, and it's already going down. Vote is already starting to chunk through this objective.
Doesn't take long, but immediately they turn to Nika.
Another cage out of Nika holds Paul and Benji in place, but they're not too worried as they break down one wall, and Benji goes right to the back
Big
line.
ult.
Triple ultimate, and the golden apple comes out, but a Fear No Evil out of Cuvo Fred separates the fight, and Layers is all by himself up with Benji up in the bat out of hell to get some damage, and he used the final swipe to escape and grab the Pyromancer, but the Titans reset.
Man, feels like neither team is just doing any damage until
Layers.
Dardes.
Layers finds him with the damage. Dardes goes down. The Titans have a one-man advantage in the fight. Nika down to half health, has to use the shield to try and walk back through, but the Titans are surging forward. Layers out of the realms, gets bursted away and trades it out 1-for-1.
Vote making it happen, but this time knocked up. Cyclone Spin gonna take him down, and now it's the Titans grouping and pushing as 4. Eventually the rest of the Warriors will run back, but the Titans have gotten the 2-for-1, and the backline from the Warriors is gone.
Keep your eyes on Cuvo. Ultimate is still down, but he can make an impact to try and steal it away. Fire Giant started up by the Tartarus Titans. You can see even damage across the board, but Cuvo spotted out on the ward on the tail end of the fight. Surely the Titans recognize that he is back there, but the Fire Giant down to a quarter health, and Benji to try and zone away Cuvo Fred. He wants to make the hero play, as well as the rest of his team. Fear No Evil, and the Warriors steal away the Fire Giant. Tartarus Titans come up empty-handed on the objective and may even lose one player in the midst of it. Neil Ma goes down because of the damage out of Paul, but trading one for the Fire is worth it every day of the week for the Warriors.
Neil gets this enhanced Fire Giant, rather, and the Warriors still breathe life in this best of 5. If the Titans were able to secure that EFG, I think the Warriors' hopes in this group would have been in a bad spot, but a big play there from Neil, 2-1. Shatters the walls and gets the EFG. And the Titans, I mean, their composition just has no tools to secure a Fire Giant. Just none. Waxing Moon is your best damage option, and that isn't great.
Nika is just running down 3 of the Tartarus Titans, but he's got some backup waiting in the jungle. Cuvo Fred back with ult in just a few seconds, and Nika all by himself right now to try and fight against 4. Cuvo and Vote sitting way in the jungle. Benji leaps out of the cage, and Dardes is caught in the middle, and Layers is going to dive right down on him. Bat out of hell needs one more swoop to get the kill, but Cuvo picks up one and makes it an even trade.
Dardes has fallen, though, and that's going to be problems.
Double kill for Layers, and it's Nika on the run now because Layers is going to chase him out. Half health on the Odin as the Titans surge forward.
And that's huge. Now, those members, I don't even think they had EFG, but now the EFG siege from the Warriors is toasted, so is Nika.
Nika's got nowhere to go. Layers is catching every leap and every blink, and Paul is the one who puts him in the dirt. Neil, who had just respawned after the fight, is already surrounded by 4, and Cuvo stands by and watches as support is surrounded by 4 Titans.
No way for Neil to get out of this, right? I mean, he blocks him off nicely. Layers uses the beads, and you have to feel like Layers is going to be able to catch him eventually. As good as it felt to steal that EFG, now the Titans might be in a good spot anyways, even after losing that EFG. They're going down mid, but they don't have a wave and they don't have a hunter. They don't deal great damage to this Phoenix.
Cuvo Fred, the only to defend. Ultimate not up just yet, and Benji will make sure that Cuvo Fred doesn't put up a defense against this Phoenix. But they're not taking it down very quickly. It's going to be the only one that they can grab in the midst of this fight. Tartarus Titans, who lost the enhanced Fire Giant to the Warriors, turn the fight around and benefit themselves by picking up that mid Phoenix.
Yeah, that chase from the Warriors all the way down that right-hand side. I mean, they kill Cyclone pretty much right away. I mean, shove that because he should win the 1v1. There are not many characters that beat Hunbat's 1v1 in the late game, but Camazotz can potentially be one of them. I like this call. Send Layers over because oftentimes teams will be checking and paranoid like, hey, do we see Cyclone? Do we see the ADC? Do we see the ADC? He's the one that can solo it. Letting Layers do it makes some sense.
And look, they sent 2 of the Warriors over to that left side, so they can't even try and pull
They
the
can
Fire
pinch him.
Giant away from the Titans, and maybe even Layers can try and go for a 1v1 up against Voda. Blink in, but Voda's got
See ya.
too much crit damage against Layers. Somehow, he managed to squeak by, but how much further can he go? He gets a
That
little bit of heal back
lifesteal.
from the bats, and a second one to go through, but that's going to start up a fight. On the right-hand side, the 2v1 distraction by the jungler is buying the Titans a little bit of time,
Whoa.
and he almost kills Cuvo.
That was close. Layers used the ultimate, but so did Cuvo. Cuvo used Blink and ult. This should be a good fight now for the Titans.
Fire Giant started up. Benji and the rest of the team burning it down. But there's still 3 from the Warriors to try and defend against this. Benji instead will turn his sights toward Dardas and chase out the mid laner. It's a cage and a Sanctified Field drop on the tail end of the fight. 2 of them managed to make it out, but it's Paul just dealing damage right back at him.
Cyclone getting a little bit too low, just poked because of that Terra ultimate. Now he walks back into the fire, literally, and starts tanking FG. That's going to full reset. The Titans aren't able to do it. And I'm really surprised that the Titans aren't willing to take that fight on the FG and get that Fire Giant a little bit lower, because I know they got their last one stolen, but you know, it's 4v3. That's a pretty advantageous position for you to be in. I think you got to just not coin flip it, but actually commit a little bit harder there. And now you've got no Sanctified Field to work with.
Nika's on the left side of the map. The Titans pull it again. And ultimate out of Aurora to hold them out. Fear No Evil used to try and get the Fire Giant, but it's no good. Instead, it's Benji. Now zoning 2 away all by himself. Bo gets hit by the Waxing Moon, and Layers picks up Cubo Fred all of his own. The Titans push forward. Vote's able to make it out, but the same cannot be said for Neil Ma. He is being chunked down and will not make it out because Layers will pick him off.
Double kill for Layers, and Dardes could be next on the docket. Nika trying his best, but mid Phoenix already under siege from the Oni minions.
Mid Phoenix and right Phoenix under fire here by the Tartarus Titans. Some good defense out of Dardas for damage, but not enough to save the bird.
Mid Phoenix is going to be the same, already gone. This should be an easy end from here for the Titans. Probably just waiting on Cyclone Spin's Sanctified Field. That should be up any second now.
The minions help push down that mid Phoenix, and they'll make their way towards the left-hand side. Just a few more seconds till Cyclone's ult comes back up. But there's no chance for this left bird to live out. It goes down quickly, and it's 30 seconds until Cuvo is back up. Nika jumped on Benji as the front line in a Sanctified Field to drop. Now the Titan under siege by the Tartarus Titans, and they're going to close this set out with Cyclone Spin taking out Nika, Layers taking out Boat. But the rest of the team taking out the last objective of the game for a clean 3-0 sweep.
Yeah, 3-0 sweep. Much better from the Warriors in that game. Obviously a lot more competitive. I really think that game hangs in the back.
The games just got more convincing as this set went on, and the Tartarus Titans maybe have their most convincing win in the late game, at least, here in game number 3. Good start to this one from the Oni Warriors. They make a great call around the Fire Giant. From that point on, though, the Tartarus Titans regained control and were able to take the game, take the set, and have now confirmed themselves in Phase 3 playoffs. And so it's a great look for this Tartarus Titans team here, Miff. And I think what we expected going into this set.
Yeah, I think that the Tartarus Titans were a heavy favorite coming into this one and can only continue to do so. But they didn't make it easy for themselves, Dave. Fire Giants went to the Oni Warriors. There were objective steals, objective sneaks, everything throughout this game that could have made it that much harder for the Tartarus Titans. And despite all of it, despite their stumbles, they come out ahead. That team fight was dirty. I was a sleeper on the Chang'e, and I should not have been.
All right, so we talked a little bit about both junglers here in this matchup, Miff. Here's a wild stat about Layers.
Please.
In the last 6 games, Layers has had double-digit kills in 3 of them.
Yep.
And in the other games...
Wait, how many total?
How many total kills?
How many total kills in the last 6?
In the last 6 games?
Oh, I didn't mean to make you do math.
41, 47 kills in the last 6 games.
That's a lot.
He has got 46 kills and 6 deaths in the last 6 games.
What?
He's gone undying in 3 of the last 6 games.
Yo, he might be good.
Yeah, Layers might be good at Smite. I think so. This was a whole team win though from the Tartarus Titans. They draft themselves Oleron late on in the draft myth. We wondered how that would look, and just the combo that we saw. It was the Sanctified Field, the Waxing Moon from Paul. Really just set up some good team fights here for this Titans team.
Yeah, a lot of the time it was just space denial. There were a couple of engagements where Sanctified Field locks down individual targets, and oh my god, that's why he's got so many kills. That dude disappeared in front of him. There were a couple of